In 1666, after the Great Fire of London, Sir Christopher Wren was responsible for rebuilding many of London's churches. And one day, a young boy leaves his mother's home and he comes up and he asks Christopher, he says, "How may I help you?" And so Christopher, not knowing what to say to him, said, "Well, here, why don't you just take some water? There's lots of people working and they need a drink." So the young boy starts going across the construction site of St. Paul's Cathedral, and he comes up to a stonemason. He asks the stonemason what he's doing, and the stonemason, from a very technical standpoint, describes the engineering that is involved in his job and how precision is important and how his job is what is going to make the cathedral have the structure to maintain and sustain through the years. He comes upon an artist, and the artist explains to him, again in very technical terms, what he is doing and perspective, and how the work of art is really the crowning adornment of a cathedral that connects it to God. And so what he is doing is really what makes St. Paul's St. Paul's. And throughout the day, he continues to one tradesperson after another who all give him very technical answers for what they are doing. He returns to his mother's home, and she says to the boy, she says, "Son, what have you been doing?" And he says, "I've been helping Sir Christopher Wren build a beautiful cathedral." The point being, everyone that the boy talked to had a very specific role, but only the boy who brought the water to them and talked to them and found out what they were doing had that integrative, macroscopic view of what was actually happening. In many ways, I feel like that is the journey that Ideas has been on over these last few years in bringing the worlds of entrepreneurship and artists and innovation together. Next slide. Artists and scientists throughout history have remarked on the bliss that accompanies a sudden creative insight. Einstein described his realization of the theory of relativity as the happiest moment in his life. More poetically, Virginia Woolf once observed how odd the creative power that brings the whole universe to order at once. Creativity and innovation are words that constantly get thrown around in brainstorming sessions and in corporate meetings and company mission statements. But yet, there's no question that these are highly valued things. But very few CEOs probably actually know the full impact of these words that they're using, nor do their employees fully know how to embrace them. And you see it, and I think our educational system is part of the reason. This illustrates America's approach to education over the last 75 years. For nearly 100 years, our educational system has trained all of us for an industrialized economy which depends upon linear progression, minimized deviation from the norm, and educational paths of extreme specialization. Next slide. But something has happened. We no longer live in a linear world. Because of technology, the world that we live in is global and exponential. Entire industries like manufacturing, healthcare, and finance are being disrupted daily by small startup companies. Technology is also accelerating democratization. Google's largest marketplace in the world is Africa right now. In 2010, 2 billion of us were connected online. By 2020, it is estimated that 5 billion people will be connected online. That is 3 billion new creative minds with the same access to artificial intelligence and technology that you and I have today. And so as technology becomes ubiquitous, the only differentiating factor may well be how we use the technology in our hands. Successful businesses and successful communities must think creatively about the future. But few businesses will say that their companies are good at creativity, and I think this is mostly because business is a linear process and creativity is not. In his book, Linchpin, author and innovator Seth Godin wrote, "Our society is struggling because during times of change, the very last people you need on your team are well-paid bureaucrats, note-takers, manual readers, TGIF laborers, map followers, and fearful employees. The compliant masses don't help so much when you don't know what to do next. What we want, what we need, what we must have are indispensable human beings. We need original thinkers and provocateurs. We need people who care. We need marketers who can lead and salespeople able to risk making a human connection. Passionate change makers willing to be shunned if necessary to make a point. Every organization needs a linchpin, one person who can bring it together and make a difference. Some organizations haven't realized it yet, or haven't perhaps articulated it, but what we need are artists. Artists are people with a genius for finding a new answer, a new connection, a new way of getting things done. Next slide. Mel Chin defines art as a catalytic force that allows new options to become visible. The artistic process is an intuitive one guided by human motivation. Synthesize, visualize, create. This is the artistic process. Might it be possible that we have overlooked a mutually beneficial relationship between artist and business? Based on our team's 40,000 plus research hours over the last 3 years, we believe that there is. As an artist and a business person, I know firsthand that artists have an increasingly important role in helping both corporations and communities reframe tough challenges and discover new opportunities. Ideas is an organization created to facilitate this process. We have created a framework that leverages the dynamic capacity of artists to synthesize, that looks for new ways to deploy exponential technology, and a framework that uses a holistic approach to development. Here's just a few examples. As we look at these images, I encourage you to think about the connections and the impact of a world like this. This is Perry Ling. He was one of our guest artists from Hong Kong who spent a month in Smoketown working on a project that blends food systems, environmental science, and technology, and he was teaching it to the kids in Smoketown, where we now sit, which is the oldest African-American community in our city. This is artist Sarah Lyon on the left. She's an artist and also a motorbike mechanic. Sarah Lyon taught a motorbike mechanic training program for young women and women not so young, but young at heart. I see you back there, Lynn Rippey. The intergenerational conversations and skill building and the knowledge transfer that occurs in these moments are a unique skill that artists have to bring to bear. Next slide. What happens when youth educators and their students travel to the Potager du Roi? This food and science production garden began by Louis XIV to feed the court of Versailles, to learn how to grow a lot of food on small parcels of land. You think about urban farming today, it sounds very familiar. For the last 2 years, our educators and students have traveled to the Potager to learn from their educators. This year, 2 of the landscape architects from there actually traveled back here and are working on a mutually beneficial project with our Smoketown community. What happens when the inventor of the world's skinniest house, architect and artist Jakub Szczesny, comes to Louisville to work inside of GE's innovation section called First Build? What happens when Jakub works side by side young designers who are starting out their career? What is the impact on those young professionals over the course of the next 20, 30, and 40 years of their professional life? What happens when a social media artist out of Brooklyn takes over a local media outlet to discuss the prevalence of diabetes? Diabetes right now is a global epidemic. 382 million people around the world have diabetes. It is estimated that by the year 2020, 1 in 3 Americans will be diabetic or pre-diabetic. Over $400 billion were spent in the U.S. system on direct and indirect care last year from diabetes alone. An artist taking over a local news outlet is starting that conversation in a southern town. What happens when a group of artists partner with one of the top insurance companies, healthcare insurance companies in the country, in a town in southern Mississippi called Natchez, to help that town become 20% healthier by the year 2020. Artists have a very unique and human way of reaching people where corporations cannot. These are just a few examples of the many ways that we see artists as uniquely qualified in activating shared value between corporations and communities. In recent years, business has been criticized as a major cause of social, environmental, and economic problems. Companies are widely thought to be prospering at the expense of the communities in which they reside. A big part of the problem lies with the companies themselves, which remain trapped in outdated, narrow approaches to value creation. Focused on optimizing short-term financial performance, they overlook the greatest unmet needs of the market, as well as the broader influences of their long-term success. Why else would companies ignore the well-being of their customers, the viability of their suppliers, and the economic and social distress of the communities in which they produce and sell? It does not have to be this way. Working together, companies and artists can bring business and communities back together if we focus on creating the shared value I've been speaking of. Generating economic value in a way that also produces value for a community by addressing its challenges. A shared value approach, reconnecting companies and society, reconnecting America to social progress. Ideas is a distinctly human approach to creating shared value between companies and communities. And we focus on the artist as the activator. With new forms of training and the new opportunities that Ideas and its clients are developing, artists can become a catalytic force of integrative macroscopic thinkers. We can help corporations and simultaneously alleviate inequalities in our systems and build healthier communities. A creative, healthy, and productive workforce is our goal. Last year, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation commissioned a program to build a healthier America. It called for a broad range of sectors, including community development, public health, healthcare, education, transportation, urban planning, business, and others, to work together to create healthier communities. The collaboration was groundbreaking, and its central aim was a culture of health that enables all of us to live longer, healthier lives. We were deeply inspired by this Robert Wood Johnson model. And so arising out of it, as well as arising out of our engagements where we have placed artists in working with Humana and GE and Accelerate Health, today we're excited to announce our new initiative, a Blueprint for Cultural Health. The Blueprint for Cultural Health will be an important pillar of Ideas' work over the coming years. By actively engaging artists at the 12 nodes of our plan, we endeavor to determine how artists can play a role in measurably improving the health and creativity of the American workforce. Ideas will offer education and training for artists who wish to work inside of the framework that we have created, a framework which allows artists to partner with industry sectors that historically have no formal relationship to the arts. Whether you're a large national health insurer, a small self-funded employer, a mother, or an artist, health is a democratizing factor that affects us all. It is a business issue, a profit issue. It's a social justice issue, a race and class issue. It is the most important challenge facing our American workforce. If we are not healthy, we are unable to earn a living and care for our families. We see health as the ultimate shared value between communities and corporations, from manufacturing to the tech sector. We see it as shared value between government leaders and educators. And statistics show that what we have been doing for the past many years to create a healthy and more innovative America has only met with limited success. As one lady in Natchez, Mississippi told me, we know we're not healthy, but here in the South we have traditions. Telling us to eat more kale and to walk more is not going to catalyze change. If you want to make a difference, she said, it can't be just about one thing. It has to be about everything. This is where we see the biggest opportunity for artists and corporations to partner together. We artists have long been at the vanguard of exploring big questions and embracing broad-scale changes and seismic shifts in culture. So let us turn our unique talents to becoming partners with corporations and communities alike in taking on some of the biggest challenges facing our American workforce. I challenge artists today to become that catalytic force that allows new options to become visible in America.